In the boundless dark of space, far beyond the Milky Way, where even the light itself seemed to slow down, there was only silence. The vastness of the universe stretched, endless and indifferent. Here, within the cold void, a giant alien empire, the Exorthi Dominion, prepared for war. Their target was an insignificant blue planet, Earth. To them, it was just another weak, primitive world waiting to be conquered and added to their ever-expanding list of civilizations they had crushed underfoot. On board the Borax I, the flagship of the Exorthi fleet, Commander Lord Kareth Warren sat poised in his command chair, an imposing figure bathed in the glow of the enormous display screens. His hands, steady with years of conquest, hovered above the controls, ready to issue the final order. Earth was just a small speck in the distance, an unnoticed world spinning silently through space, unaware of the fate awaiting it. The mission was simple. Another conquest. Another victory for the Dominion. But then, everything changed. As Lord Kareth was about to give the order for the fleet to approach, a strange, eerie event unfolded before his eyes. The comm system, usually flawless, began to hum with static, a distortion that at first seemed like a glitch. But then, the hum deepened into something far more ominous. The channels flickered, and a message, clear and chilling, broke through their otherwise secured communication line. A voice, ancient and unfathomable, resonated across the entire fleet, sending a cold shiver down the spines of every soldier and officer on board. The language was foreign, unlike anything they had ever encountered, yet there was no mistaking its tone, calm, powerful, and deeply unsettling. "This world is not yours to touch," the voice declared, "turn back, or be buried in silence." It was a warning, one that the Exorthi fleet had never faced before. A message in an ancient dialect, long forgotten by time, a language known only to the royal bloodlines of the Exorthi Dominion. This was not a mere broadcast. It was a direct challenge. A threat. Lord Kareth sat frozen for a moment. His gaze fixed on the display screen, where Earth still spun innocently in the distance. His mind raced. How could this be? What could possibly send such a message? What kind of entity would dare to threaten the Exorthi Dominion, the rulers of more than 30 star systems? Their empire had crushed civilizations before, advanced and primitive alike. None had resisted. None had dared to speak in such a way. The moment passed, but the unease lingered. Lord Kareth quickly ordered his officers to trace the origin of the signal. His voice, usually so commanding, now sounded strained as he demanded answers. But the search yielded nothing. The source of the signal remained untraceable. The fleet's most advanced technologies failed to crack the code. Their systems began to malfunction, first small glitches, then larger, more troubling failures. Communication channels buzzed with static. Displays flickered. The fleet's AI systems began to misinterpret orders, and even the most seasoned soldiers started to feel something they never had before, fear. Lord Kareth's hand tightened on the armrest of his chair. He knew that the Exorthi Dominion had never faced something like this. They were not just fighting a primitive world. This was something else. Something they could not understand. As his officers worked furiously to decipher the message, the unease spread through the fleet like a virus. The air seemed thick with tension. The invaders, who had always struck fear into others, were now beginning to feel the sting of doubt. A part of them, perhaps for the first time, questioned their invincibility. They could not see what was out there, but something was watching. Something was waiting. Back on Earth, hidden deep beneath the Russian Ural Mountains, a group of scientists, oblivious to the approaching threat, worked diligently in a subterranean lab. When the same signal was detected across their monitors, their reactions were not as dismissive as the Exorthi fleet. They had studied alien signals for years, and yet this one filled them with an unexplainable dread. Dr. Sarah Lim, the head scientist of the operation, narrowed her eyes as she analyzed the pattern of the message. There was something about it, something that made her heart race. It wasn't just a warning, it was a claim. Earth had been marked. It wasn't the first time humanity had encountered alien signals, but this felt different. It was ancient, almost primal. A message from a civilization older than any they had ever encountered, from a power far beyond their understanding. Dr. Lim sat back in her chair, the weight of the discovery pressing on her chest. Her fingers trembled as she typed out the coordinates embedded in the message, a location deep beneath the surface of the Earth. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. Earth was not the weak, defenseless planet it appeared to be. It had been prepared. It had been protected by something older, far more powerful than the Exorthi Dominion could ever fathom. For the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. But also fear. Because she knew, whatever was hidden beneath the surface of the Earth, it was not for humans to control. It was there for something, or someone, else. And now, as the Exorthi fleet drew closer, she understood one terrifying truth: Earth was not about to be conquered. It was about to fight back. As the cold silence of space pressed against the Exorthi fleet, the tension on board the Boraxi was palpable. Lord Kareth Warren stood, staring at the massive holodisplay of Earth, its blue surface seemingly innocent and unaware of the impending doom. The strange message that had pierced their communication systems echoed in his mind: this world is not yours to touch. Turn back, or be buried in silence. The message was clear, but its origin was a complete mystery. It had come from nowhere, from a source that no one in the fleet could identify. It was a language no one could understand, a dialect lost to time, known only to the royal bloodlines of the Exorthi Dominion. How had it crossed their impenetrable communication network? How had it pierced their most advanced defenses? Karetha's mind raced as he paced the command deck. His fleet had conquered hundreds of worlds, countless civilizations had fallen beneath their might, but this was different. The Dominion had never faced a challenge like this before. A planet with no signs of advanced technology, no military forces to speak of, yet capable of sending a warning that shook even the most seasoned warriors. Commander Vaughn, Kareth snapped, his voice tight with barely contained frustration. Find out where this message came from. Vaughn, the fleet's chief communications officer, quickly nodded and began barking orders to the cryptography and AI teams. The crew scrambled to trace the origins of the signal, working against the clock. Vaughn himself was a man of action, skilled in the art of war and espionage, but this was a challenge unlike any he had encountered. The fleet had dealt with resistance before, alien species that fought back, some with advanced technology, others with sheer willpower. But nothing like this. The hours that followed were filled with frantic activity. The cryptographers worked in shifts, feverishly attempting to decode the ancient dialect of the message. Their systems, the most advanced in the galaxy, were failing them at every turn. Every attempt to trace the origin of the signal ended in failure. They could find no source, no trace of the signal's entry into their system. It was as if it had materialized out of nowhere. Worse still, every time they attempted to break down the code, their systems began to glitch. Red warning lights flashed across the ship's command center. Computers malfunctioned, consoles flickered and shut down, and screens went black. It was as though the message itself was fighting back, preventing them from understanding it. The AI, which had never failed them before, struggled to comprehend the data, as if it were being overridden by something more powerful. Vaughn, who had been watching the cryptographer's progress, grew increasingly frustrated. He couldn't understand what was happening. It wasn't just a malfunction, it was deliberate. The message seemed to have a life of its own, and every time they tried to analyze it, the systems rejected their efforts. As the cryptographers struggled, Lord Kareth watched from the command bridge, his fists clenched tightly behind his back. He was a man who had spent his life commanding armies, leading conquests, and crushing worlds into submission. But here, on the edge of the universe, with Earth in sight, he felt the sting of something he had never experienced: fear. The Exorthi Dominion had always been the conquerors, never the conquered. Now, for the first time, they were facing an enemy they could not understand. He turned to his chief officer, a seasoned veteran named General Adric. How can this be happening? Caratha's voice was low, his anger barely controlled. This planet, this insignificant world, has no military, no weapons, nothing. Yet it sends a message that has crippled my fleet. Adric's face was as impassive as ever, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. I don't know, sir. But I've been with you through countless battles, and I've never seen anything like this before. This is different. Carath nodded grimly. The air in the command center felt heavy. He could feel the eyes of his crew on him, waiting for him to give the next order. He knew they were all wondering the same thing: what could possibly threaten the Exorthi Dominion? The only thing that was clear now was that Earth was not just an easy target. There was something far more dangerous at play. Something ancient and powerful. And they were about to find out just how deep the mystery went. Back on Earth, deep in the Russian Ural Mountains, Dr. Sarah Lim and her team of scientists were also grappling with the implications of the signal. They had detected the same transmission, this strange message from the abyss of space. While the Exorthi fleet struggled to decode the language, Sarah was already on a different path. She had spent years studying alien signals, decoding patterns, and analyzing extraterrestrial messages. But this one was different. It was far more complex than any signal they had ever encountered. It was layered, filled with hidden meanings, and most disturbingly, it was not meant for humanity. The more Sarah studied it, the more she realized that this was not a message for Earth. It was a warning, for the invaders. Her heart raced as she examined the coordinates embedded within the message. The pattern was like nothing she had ever seen before. And then, with a shock that jolted her from her chair, she realized where the coordinates pointed: beneath the Earth, near the deepest trenches of the ocean. A chill ran down her spine. There was something down there. Something ancient. Something that had been waiting. The world beneath them was far more than anyone had imagined. And now, as the Exorthi fleet moved ever closer, Sarah knew one undeniable truth: Earth had not been unprepared for this moment. It had been waiting for this very invasion. Sarah's fingers hovered over the keyboard. As the cryptographers on the Boraxi continued their futile race to decode the message, she found herself facing an equally terrifying race of her own. Earth's defenses, ancient and hidden, were about to awaken. And when they did, the Exorthi fleet would learn a truth they were not ready for. The signal was not just a warning. It was a call to arms. The Exorthi fleet moved closer to Earth, its massive ships gliding through the black void, undeterred by the mysterious message that still reverberated in their minds. Lord Carath Warren, though visibly shaken, remained determined to proceed with the invasion. The crew of the Boraxi, his flagship, stood poised, awaiting his orders, but there was a palpable unease in the air, a tension that had not existed before. Then, something extraordinary happened. The fleet sensors, which had been scanning the space around them for any signs of resistance, suddenly went haywire. A large escort destroyer, Vraxer, which had been trailing the main fleet, simply disappeared from the radar. No explosion. No signal of distress. It was there one moment, and then it was gone, swallowed by the dark abyss. "Commander, Vraxer has vanished," a frantic officer called out, his voice trembling with disbelief. The fleet systems had been flawless up until now, so this was a break in their perfect records. At first, Lord Carath thought it was a glitch, perhaps a minor fault in the sensors, but the feeling of something deeply wrong gripped him. He ordered the ship's sensors to be pushed to maximum power. The fleet turned all their instruments on the spot where Vraxer had been, scanning the area with every method available. What they found, or rather, didn't find, was even more unnerving: nothing. There was no wreckage, no debris, no faint traces of energy that might suggest a catastrophic failure. Just the emptiness of space. "What is happening?" Carath muttered under his breath. He was a man of logic and reason, not superstition or fear. Yet, as he stared at the empty spot where Vraxer had once been, a chilling thought began to form in his mind. Could the message they had received, the warning, be true? Could Earth truly be under the protection of something beyond their understanding? Something that could erase their most advanced ships from existence without a trace? In the command center, whispers broke out among the officers. They had never seen anything like this. Fear, something foreign to their hardened hearts, began to seep into their thoughts. A fear not just of the unknown, but of something far more terrifying, the realization that they were not the conquerors anymore. Something else was in control. Lord Kareth gritted his teeth. His confidence, which had once been unshakable, now wavered. He looked at his officers, their faces pale, and made a decision. He would not back down. The invasion would proceed. But deep down, he wondered if the Exorthi Dominion had underestimated their enemy, if Earth was not the easy conquest they had believed. Back on Earth, in the cold and quiet depths of the Russian Ural Mountains, a team of scientists was hard at work, entirely unaware of the impending alien invasion. Deep underground, in a high-security research facility, Dr. Sarah Lim and her team studied the mysterious signal that had shaken the Exorthi fleet. They had detected it too, this strange, cryptic message from the stars. Dr. Lim, a seasoned astrophysicist and cryptographer, was the first to notice the anomaly. Unlike any other signal they had encountered before, this one was layered with complexity, encoding secrets within its structure that no ordinary technology could decode. As she examined the data, her heart raced. This was no ordinary warning. No simple distress call. The message was a territorial claim, a declaration: Earth was not to be touched. For years, Earth had been oblivious to the vastness of the universe beyond its atmosphere. But now, Dr. Lim understood that their planet was not just a primitive world, vulnerable and defenseless. It was something far more significant. Something that had been shielded from the stars for centuries. The coordinates embedded in the signal led to a hidden, undisclosed location deep beneath the Earth's surface, near the deepest trenches of the ocean. The realization struck her like a bolt of lightning. Something ancient, something powerful, had been waiting beneath the Earth for this very moment. The signal wasn't for humanity, it was for the invaders. And Earth's protector had awakened. Without a moment's hesitation, Sarah initiated a secure communication to her superiors. The coordinates, they're real. Earth has been prepared for this invasion, but not by us. There's something below us, something ancient that has been protecting us, waiting for the right moment. Her voice shook with both awe and fear as the words left her mouth. We have no idea what we're dealing with, but it's not just a machine. This is something that predates all of us. The information spread quickly through classified channels, reaching the highest echelons of Earth's defense networks. In hidden chambers, buried deep within the Earth, plans that had been set in motion centuries ago began to awaken. These were not human creations, no. They were relics of an ancient civilization that had long disappeared, leaving behind their secrets, their guardians, and their hidden technologies. Meanwhile, the Exorthi fleet, still unaware of the growing storm beneath their feet, continued its approach. Lord Kareth stood at the helm of his flagship, watching Earth draw nearer on the display. The fleet sensors, still malfunctioning, couldn't detect anything unusual. There were no signs of advanced weaponry, no signs of preparation. But Kareth couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Earth had been quiet, almost too quiet. The deeper he probed, the more the question gnawed at him: what was Earth hiding? As the fleet crossed Neptune's orbit, the answer would begin to reveal itself. As the Exorthi fleet neared Earth, an overwhelming silence descended upon the bridge of the Borax Eye. Lord Kareth Warren stood in front of the large holodisplay, his gaze fixed on Earth, now a mere speck on the vast canvas of space. The fleet had been through countless battles, faced hostile alien forces, and yet never had he felt the weight of uncertainty so profoundly. The strange disappearance of Vraxar and the untraceable signal still lingered in his thoughts. But it was when the fleet crossed the orbit of Neptune that something extraordinary began to happen, something beyond anything the Exorthi fleet had ever experienced. Far below, beneath the deep, cold oceans of Earth, the ancient guardian that had lain dormant for millennia stirred to life. The powerful machine, crafted by a civilization long forgotten, awakened with a low hum that reverberated through the ocean floor. As if responding to the presence of the alien invaders, enormous structures began to rise from the abyss. They emerged silently, their massive frames covered in glowing energy fields, shimmering blue light that cut through the darkness like stars igniting in the void. The fleet's sensors, already malfunctioning, struggled to comprehend what was unfolding beneath them. The screens flickered with static, the images of Earth distorted by the overwhelming force that was now being unleashed. But there was no mistaking it, something ancient and powerful had awoken, and it was responding to the threat. Back on Earth, in the underground control facility, Dr. Sarah Lim and her team watched in awe as their monitors displayed the same sequence of events. The Guardian, the ancient machine she had discovered, was coming to life. But it wasn't just any machine, it was a sentinel, built not to conquer, but to protect. It had been waiting for this moment, hiding beneath the ocean's depths, ready to rise when Earth needed it most. Dr. Lim felt her breath catch in her throat. The coordinates she had found had been right, this was no mere artifact. It was Earth's last defense, its final answer to the Exorthi fleet. As the machines continued to emerge from the ocean floor, glowing with an ethereal light, the Exorthi fleet's approach became even more perilous. The invaders, once so confident in their superiority, now found themselves facing an enemy they could neither see nor understand. A force beyond their comprehension. Lord Kareth, still on the bridge of the Borax Eye, could feel it. He turned toward his officers, his mind racing. What is this? What have we awakened? But there was no answer, only the cold, silent echo of the rising Guardian. The Exorthi fleet, so certain of their victory, was about to face something far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. The Exorthi fleet, once confident in their invincibility, now hovered at the edge of uncertainty. The Borax Eye, flagship of the fleet, drifted silently in the cold void, its crew tense with anticipation. Lord Kareth stood, his hands clasped behind his back, staring out into the darkness, his thoughts racing. The ancient signal, the mysterious disappearance of Raxor, and the rising structures on Earth had shattered their confidence. They were no longer facing a primitive planet, but a force they could not comprehend. The fleet's weapons were primed, their systems ready for an assault, but the commander hesitated. The appearance of the Guardian, the ancient machines emerging from the ocean's depths, had thrown the invasion into chaos. What was this force that had awakened from beneath the Earth's surface? Could it be that Earth had been hiding something this powerful for centuries? Lord Kareth's mind was clouded with doubt, but he knew one thing, the Exorthi Dominion could not be deterred. This invasion would proceed, no matter what. With a sharp command, the fleet began their attack. Plasma bolts, missiles, and gravitational torpedoes surged toward the glowing structures rising from Earth's oceans. The first wave of weapons struck the Guardian and its towering constructs with all the might of the Exorthi Dominion's technology. The impact should have been devastating, yet something unprecedented happened. Instead of the structures crumbling or exploding, the energy beams from the weapons simply vanished upon contact with the Guardian. The machines stood unshaken, their energy shields absorbing the blows with eerie calm. It was as though the Guardian were an unmovable force, absorbing everything the Exorthi fleet could throw at it without even a scratch. Lord Kareth's eyes widened as the fleet sensors began to flash wildly. What's happening? He demanded, his voice sharp with disbelief. The fleet's weapons, once their greatest advantage, were now rendered useless. The Guardian absorbed the blasts effortlessly, and the massive structures it protected remained intact. Then came the most shocking turn of events. The Guardian struck back, not with the sheer force the Exorthi had expected, but with surgical precision. The first strike came as a concentrated beam of energy, not at the fleet's weapons or shields, but at the fleet's engines. One by one, the Exorthi ships lost power. Their engines sputtered, their weapon systems faltered, and their shields flickered weakly. Within moments, the Exorthi fleet had been rendered powerless, not through raw destruction, but through an overwhelming display of control. The Guardian's message was clear, it wasn't trying to destroy the fleet, it was neutralizing them, leaving them helpless without a single life lost. It was a warning. The Exorthi Dominion was not welcome here. They had been allowed to come this far, but no further. Lord Kareth stood in stunned silence as his flagship and the fleet around him came to a halt. Their weapons were useless. Their sensors failed. They were now drifting in space, surrounded by a force they could not defeat. The silent power of Earth had spoken. The Boraxi hung motionless in space, surrounded by the remnants of the Exorthi fleet. The once confident invaders were now powerless, their ships floating helplessly in the vastness of the universe. The invasion had been halted, no explosions, no destruction, only the quiet hum of systems failing. Lord Kareth Warren stood on the command bridge, his jaw clenched, his mind racing. This was not how it was supposed to go. They had been certain. They had never lost. The fleet had come to conquer, to crush, to add Earth to their growing empire. But instead, they found themselves at the mercy of a force they could neither understand nor defeat. The Guardian, that ancient and mysterious protector of Earth, had rendered their most advanced weapons useless, disabling their ships with precise, overwhelming power. The Exorthi fleet had been neutralized, not through brute force, but through an overwhelming display of control and mercy. And now, the fleet was stranded, their power crippled, unable to proceed or retreat. "Commander, we've lost power," the officer's voice came over the comm, trembling with disbelief. "All systems are offline. Weapons, engines, everything." Lord Kareth's grip tightened on the armrest of his chair. He looked around at the faces of his officers, their eyes wide with fear. For the first time, the great Lord Kareth Warren felt the cold grip of helplessness. His fleet, his empire, had been brought to its knees by something as simple and yet as terrifying as a planet that had no visible means of defense. "Prepare to retreat," he said, his voice low but firm. There was no pride left in his words. No arrogance. Only the realization that they had underestimated their enemy. "Gather what's left of the fleet and head back to the edge of the system. We're leaving." The words felt wrong as soon as they left his mouth. Retreat? The Exorthi Dominion did not retreat. They were conquerors. They were invincible. Yet, here they were, forced to retreat by a force they couldn't even see. A planet that had no weapons, no military strength, no advanced technology. And yet, they had been stopped. As the remaining ships of the fleet slowly turned away from Earth, Lord Kareth's mind remained clouded. He could still feel the pull of that cold, silent power beneath the surface of the planet. What was it? What kind of force had they just encountered? With a heavy heart, he watched as the fleet drifted back into the vastness of space. They had failed. And Earth, that insignificant world, had triumphed. As the Exorthi fleet drifted away from Earth, helpless and shattered, a profound silence engulfed the vast reaches of space. Lord Kareth Warren, still staring at the glowing blue planet in the distance, felt the weight of defeat like a leaden weight pressing against his chest. His mind raced with questions. What had just happened? How had they been brought to their knees by something so simple, so seemingly insignificant as a planet that had no weapons, no military, no visible defenses? The answer came swiftly, too swiftly for them to grasp. Without warning, the silence was shattered by a powerful, pulse-like wave that rippled through the entire solar system. It wasn't a physical attack, but something far more extraordinary. The Exorthi fleet's communication systems went haywire, their sensors scrambled by the energy that emanated from Earth. The message wasn't transmitted through words or signals, but through an immense burst of energy that seemed to shake the very fabric of space itself. Every ship in the fleet, from the Boraxi to the smallest reconnaissance vessel, felt the impact. Their screens flickered, and their systems began to malfunction. The bridge of the Boraxi was in chaos as officers scrambled to stabilize their communications. And then, as if the energy had been directed solely at them, a single, simple message appeared on every screen: turn back. It wasn't a plea, nor was it a demand. It was a statement. A final warning. The message resonated not only in their communication systems but in their very minds. It was as though the planet itself had spoken directly to them, through a power they couldn't begin to comprehend. It wasn't technology. It wasn't an alien force. It was something else. Something far older, far more primal. Lord Kareth stood frozen, his hand gripping the edge of the command console, his mind numb. What kind of power had they just encountered? What kind of force could silence an entire fleet without firing a single shot? The fleet had been stopped, not by weapons or advanced technology, but by a presence, a force that had always been there, hidden beneath the surface of the Earth. The message was not just a warning to the Exorthi fleet. It was a reminder to the galaxy, Earth was not defenseless. It was protected by something ancient, something powerful, and something that would never bow to invaders. The Exorthi fleet, now crippled and retreating, had learned their lesson too late. Earth had spoken, and they had been forced to listen. Far from the chaos surrounding Earth, in the heart of the galaxy, the Galactic High Council convened in a vast, hollow chamber where representatives from the galaxy's most powerful species gathered. The room was filled with tension, and the once vibrant discussions now simmered with unease. The Exorthi fleet's distress call had been received, and its contents had shocked everyone. The mighty Exorthi Dominion, the galaxy's conquerors, had been forced into retreat. What was once an unstoppable force had been stopped by something no one had predicted, Earth. High Chancellor Maldrich, a towering figure from the Thraxian Dominion, sat at the center of the council, his many eyes narrowing as he watched the shattered transmission from the Exorthi fleet. His species had destroyed entire worlds in mere seconds, yet here they were, receiving a call from an empire that had always been feared and respected. The Exorthi fleet, now returning, had sent a desperate plea for mercy. Do not approach Earth. There is something there we cannot understand. We attacked, and it let us live. The council chamber fell silent as the message repeated itself. No one had ever witnessed such a display of vulnerability from the Exorthi. The council members exchanged glances, their unease palpable. A lone hum filled the room as advisors and strategists whispered among themselves. The fleet's failure was now the galaxy's concern. What had happened to the Exorthi? What had caused this unprecedented retreat? Why did they not finish the job? Asked a voice from the Zaraki delegation, soft and unnerving. It was a species known for its intelligence and calculating nature, and this new development raised their concerns even more. They could have destroyed Earth, but instead, they let them live. Maldrich's fingers tapped rhythmically on the council table. His expression betrayed little, but the wheels of his mind were turning. The Exorthi Dominion had always been ruthless, calculating, and relentless. What could possibly have stopped them? What had they encountered on Earth? He rose to speak, his voice carrying authority. This is not just about the Exorthi. This is about something far older, far more dangerous than we've ever faced. Earth is no longer the weak planet we thought it was. Whatever it is that protected them, whatever force is at work there, it has the power to defeat even the might of the Exorthi Dominion. A murmur swept through the chamber. Representatives from various species shifted uneasily. Maldrich's words had struck a nerve. No one knew what Earth had hidden beneath its surface, but now, they all knew one thing: this planet was not to be underestimated. It had become a power to be reckoned with. In the shadows of the council chamber, agents from rogue empires and secret organizations exchanged furtive glances. The decision to leave Earth untouched had been made, but in the darker corners of the galaxy, the temptation to explore, to exploit, and perhaps even to conquer, lingered. Some believed Earth's guardian was simply a myth, while others feared it might be a weapon of unimaginable power, waiting for the wrong kind of challenge. As the Council voted unanimously to classify Earth as a protected planet, a decision meant to keep it safe from interference, a single thought lingered in the minds of many: how long before someone, somewhere, tested the power of Earth? In the shadow of the Galactic High Council's decision, the galaxy held its breath. Earth had been classified as a protected planet, its secrets hidden beneath layers of power, its existence now a subject of intense debate among the galaxy's most powerful factions. But while the Council moved to safeguard Earth from further interference, a darker, more dangerous force was already at work, beyond the reach of the Council, beyond the jurisdiction of any known empire. In the deep, hidden corners of space, where the galaxy's brightest stars seemed to flicker with uncertainty, whispers began to stir. Not everyone agreed with the decision to leave Earth untouched. In secret, rogue factions, shadow governments, and power-hungry warlords from across the galaxy convened. Their motives were simple. Earth had shown that it possessed an ancient and powerful force, something that could not be ignored, something worth stealing. The message sent by Earth had reverberated across the galaxy. Turn back. A force that had defeated the mighty Exorthi Dominion, rendering their weapons useless, had been revealed to exist beneath Earth's surface. But what was it? What was hiding deep within the planet, waiting to unleash its wrath? Some believed it was simply a relic of an ancient civilization, something old, forgotten, and harmless. Others believed it was a weapon, a tool of destruction created long before their time, capable of reshaping the balance of power in the universe. One such figure, Vaer, a disgraced former commander from the Imperial fleet, sat in a darkened room aboard his stealth ship, staring at a hologram of Earth. He had seen the destruction the Exorthi fleet had suffered, and like many others, he was captivated by the mystery surrounding the planet. "There's more down there," he said softly, his voice dripping with ambition. "More than we've been told. And it's ours for the taking." Vaer's crew, a mix of exiled scientists, smugglers, and mercenaries, leaned in to listen. They had been preparing for this moment for months, gathering resources, organizing their forces. Their mission was clear: infiltrate Earth's defenses, uncover its secrets, and claim whatever power lay hidden beneath its surface. As they prepared to launch their covert operation, they were unaware of the magnitude of the forces that were already watching them, forces that had been waiting for this very moment. Beneath the ocean floor, in the heart of Earth's ancient defense systems, something stirred once again. It was not a weapon. It was not a machine. It was a sentinel, an ancient guardian whose purpose was to protect Earth, to guard its secrets from the greed and ambition of those who would seek to exploit it. And now, as the rogue fleet moved toward Earth, the Guardian would awaken once more to meet the challenge. The stage was set. The galaxy was about to witness the first true test of Earth's power, and the consequences would be felt far beyond the reaches of the solar system. No one knew what would happen next. But one thing was certain: Earth had already decided. The storm was coming.